With the Quartermaster, INEOS tries its hand at pickups. And what a pickup! It'll go places no other rival will go and feels bulletproof. Unfortunately though, there's a high price to pay for the privilege. My name's Jonathan Crouch. I've been testing cars for over 40 years. You'll find them all on the Car and Driving Car Reviews app. Here, I'm going to try and tell you everything that you really need to know about this model in a way that you'll find nowhere else. Let me hand you over to our presenter, Steve.
INEOS wants a high price for this Quartermaster pickup, but is it worth it? We're going to find that out right here. Some people have quite a different idea of what the ultimate pickup should be. For them, it's not something blinged up or leather lined, the ultimate attributes instead being of the trail ready kind. Now, these are the kinds of people who in the past might have bought an old shape Land Rover Defender pickup, or in the US, I might have chosen something like a Jeep Gladiator, and who here might choose this contender, the INEOS Quartermaster. You might immediately pigeonhole this as the pickup version of the INEOS Grenadier SUV, which is certainly true to some extent, but the Quartermaster is longer overall and rides on a chassis with a lengthier wheelbase. The pricing is in a different and far more exalted league than ordinary pickups, but then the off-road ability on offer here is too. You can find out more about this kind of pickup by downloading the Car and Driving app, but if your interest is specifically in this Quartermaster, then stay with us for the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. As you'd expect, the Quartermaster drives like the Grenadier SUV it's based on, although you notice the rather ponderous feel rather less here because pickup drivers' expectations are somewhat different, of course. As with the SUV model, there are two engine choices. They're both 3-litre straight 6-cylinder units sourced from BMW, so both come mated to the Bavarian maker's usual transmission choice. For those power plants, that's an 8-speed ZF auto gearbox. Choose between a twin-turbo 249 PS diesel with 550 Nm of torque or the single-turbo 286 PS petrol unit with 450 Nm of torque that we're trying here. The performance stats that matter here, of course, are quite different ones. An approach angle of 35.5 degrees, a breakover angle of 26.2 degrees, and a departure angle of 22.6 degrees. Now, we should point out that those figures are slightly inferior to those of a Grenadier. That's an inevitable consequence of this pickup's longer body length. The departure angle in particular is well down from the 36.1 degree figure that's boasted by the Grenadier. But even so, as we've found in some fairly serious off-roading conducted during this test, there's still very little off-road that will stop a Quartermaster. Quite simply, it's in a totally different mud-plugging league to other lesser pickups, and that's helped by ground clearance of 264 millimeters and a wading depth of 800 millimeters. The engineering here is pretty familiar stuff for old school off-roaders. Ladder frame chassis, solid axles, permanent four-wheel drive, a locking center differential and a 2-speed transfer case that gives a set of crawler gears for really gnarly tracks. This INEOS will be even better on the muddy stuff if you specify it with the brand's rough pack. This gives you front and rear differential locks and gnarlier BF Goodrich off-road tires. All models get hill descent control and vast wheel articulation. Towing capacity is up to 3.5 tons and the vehicle can winch up to 5.5 tons. If money's no object, there's a top Trialmaster X variant developed by German off-road experts Litec, which for off-roading has to be the ultimate pickup ever made. There are no engine changes here, so the same straight six petrol or diesel choice. No, this is all about extreme capability. Here each of the wheel hubs has its own little gearbox which lowers the gear ratio, raises under axle clearance and widens track width. Ground clearance jumps to 450 millimeters, so wading depth is up to 1050 mils, while the breakover angle soars to 39.5 degrees, and gross vehicle weight that soars too to a mammoth 4.2 tons. Whatever kind of Quartermaster you choose, your main area for managing this pickup's off-piste setup is the off-road section of this central screen here, which has 5 menus. Attitude deals with pitch, roll, wheel angles, G-forces and altitude. Temperature gives those readings for the gearbox, the transmission case and for the tyres. There's a Pathfinder section for the trail-orientated Pathfinder off-road navigation system, which allows you to record the path that you're traversing so you can retrace your steps afterwards. Statistics, that deals with stats for latitude, longitude, travel time, travel distance and average speed. And electrical shows you battery temperature, voltage and state of charge. What about this Quartermaster's behaviour though on a paved surface? Well, you won't be expecting too much from the tarmac driving experience, and you really shouldn't actually, but it's okay as long as you accept what you're getting here from a car which really has got its off-road priorities right. 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 8.8 seconds in the petrol or 9.8 seconds in the diesel version, and either way you're all done at 99 miles an hour. You'll have to get used to the old-fashioned Jeep Wrangler-like recirculating ball steering, which means you have to turn the wheel rather more than you think you have to, and it exacerbates the fact that the turning circle here is really awful, particularly with these optional BF Goodrich off-road tyres fitted. And it's not just awful for turning in a circle. Sometimes just turning into an entrance requires a couple of bites at it if you're not concentrating properly. You might hope that substituting the usual leaf-sprung suspension arrangement for coil springs here would deliver a more car-like ride, but in the event you're clumped over potholes and speed humps almost as crudely as you would be in any other pickup. Insurance for the Quartermaster is Group 50, so that won't make you feel too comfortable either. Service intervals are every year or 12,000 miles, but under heavy use that could fall to 6 months and 6,000 miles because engine hours count as well as mileage. Front on, you might think this was a Grenadier at first glance, because from the nose to the back of the second row seats, the Quartermaster actually looks the same as its SUV stablemate, or at least the 5-seat utility wagon version of that Grenadier, which it's actually based on. Compared to the SUV, the wheelbase has been lengthened here by 305 millimeters, creating an overall Quartermaster body length of 5,400 mils, which is 545 millimeters longer overall. With this pickup, only one size and body shape is available, although a chassis cab model is also offered. There are some interesting exterior color personalization options. You can, for example, as here, get the ladder frame chassis painted a contrast color. Here it's been finished in halo red. Your wheel choices are between 17-inch steel rims or these 18-inch alloys. Head on, it's an honest, boxy design with flat front wings, which will be ideal for resting kit. Plus, there are round LED auxiliary high beam headlights with a pair of supplementary beams in the grille to aid nighttime off-road work, along with a properly tough lower skid plate and prominent towing eyes. If you'll be regularly trying out the 800mm wading depth, it'd be wise to also add this optional raised air intake. Many owners will also add the optional integrated heavy-duty winch, which will give you a lot of extra peace of mind if you happen to be trying out some particularly challenging off-road trails on your own. It offers up to 5.5 tons of winching power for recovering yourself or others. Moving to the rear, INEOS is keen to brief you on the Gallic provenance of this pickup with this built-in handback badge on the back window. If you don't happen to have this Quartermaster decal on the rear offside. There's no formal badging to say what this vehicle is. The tailgate has only Grenadier branding. And the round tail lights, they remind you that perhaps contrary to initial appearances, this is no kind of Land Rover product. This optional tow bar might as well be mandatory, really. It's hard to imagine anyone buying a Quartermaster without it. Right, let's take a look inside. You have to climb up into the cab, but side steps here and low profile seat cushions are going to make that easier. Inside, as expected, it's just as in a Grenadier, so once you've climbed up into the driver's seat, you're faced with an ugly steering wheel and lots of chunky controls. There's a real mix here, the type of ZF gear stick that last decade BMWs used to use, and an aircraft-style overhead control panel built into the roof. Lots to get used to. At least a pickup owner won't be disappointed by all the robust wipe-clean plastics and vinyl surfaces like a customer for a luxury SUV might be in a Grenadier. There's no conventional instrument binnacle, just a small panel of warning lights, all of which illuminate briefly like a Christmas tree when you turn the old-fashioned ignition key. Instead, your drive instruments, speed, gear selection, revs and so on feature Tesla-like on the right-hand side of this upper central screen. It's just another thing that you'll have to get used to. There's a digital speed readout with a rev band beneath, above boxes for temperature, fuel and gear selection. Below that is an odometer readout on the right and a small customizable box on the left, which you configure with presses on the end of the left-hand indicator stalk. There are 6 options: remaining range, driven time, current economy, average speed, average economy and driven distance. The other screen is this upper 12.3-inch central screen, which can display an impressive amount of features, your current bearing and coordinates, your steering angle and vehicle altitude, plus tyre pressures and expected stuff like media features, your phone book and of course maps, in this case a trail-orientated Pathfinder off-road navigation system. Thankfully, INEOS has also included a lower rotary capstan to make access to all these features easier. Or you can find what you want via steering wheel buttons if you don't want to stab away at the screen. Below this central air vent strip with its integrated compass, the everyday controls sit on this slab-sided centre stack, and as mentioned earlier, even more buttons reside on this overhead control panel. This houses all the off-road switchgear and functions such as the off-road and wading modes, plus the downhill assist system switch and the axle differential lock buttons too, if your Quartermaster of course has been fitted with them. Plus, usually added to all this switchgear are both standard and optional pre-wired auxiliary controls. They can be used for options or accessories such as winches or light bars. Enough on buttons. What else? Well, we like the supportive standard 8-way manually adjustable Recaro front seats. We're rather less keen on the rather ugly design of this Grenadier branded 2-spoke wheel. Its main feature of note is this red button on the right-hand spoke. INEOS calls it a toot button, and pressing that emits a friendly tone that's quieter than the regular horn. The idea is to more politely announce your Quartermaster's presence to walkers or cyclists that you might come across while you're traversing the wilds. Usually optional but standard on this Fieldmaster version are these overhead safari windows, individual glass panels positioned above the front seat occupants, which can be angled up for ventilation or removed completely and housed in dedicated storage bags. As on a Grenadier, you can splash out on the extra cost leather upholstery we have here, but that does seem to rather defeat the point of this utilitarian design. Also, as on a Grenadier, the wipers are poorly designed. They leave the top half of the screen dirty. At night, neither the ignition slot nor the light stalk are backlit, so you'd be fishing around in the dark for those. What about practical cabin touches? Well, the glove box is disappointingly tiny, but you do get big door bins and a decently sized lidded stowage area between the seats, which includes both USB-A and C ports, along with a 12-volt front socket. Avoid base trim, and you can lock this for extra security. There are twin cup holders, a very prominent grab handle ahead of the front passenger. That's one of no fewer than 6 around the cabin, and 2 fairly useless small rubber matted areas, one ahead of the gear stick and another one on top of the dash. A bit like with a Mercedes G-Wagen, the doors do take a bit of a slam to shut. Right, let's take a look in the rear. Where the rear bench is mounted higher than the front chair, so you get a good view out. The backrest is extremely upright, predictably much more so than in a Grenadier, although you do expect that in a pickup. What you might hope for though in a double cab, particularly one with a wheelbase length this long, is a bit more leg room. It really is tight back here, and it'd be even more so if it wasn't for the chiseled angling of these front seat backs, which makes it impossible for INEOS to fit seat back pockets. There's no central armrest here, and the headrests are the sort that dig uncomfortably into your neck until you raise them. On the plus side though, you get overhead reading lights, a USB A and C port, twin vents and nicely finished door cards. At the time of our review in autumn 2025, Quartermaster pricing started at £62,495 for either the petrol or the diesel version, including VAT, which in this case you won't be able to claim back. That's for base spec though, which comes fairly stripped out, but does still include Recaro seats, LED headlights, Pathfinder off-road navigation and a full-size spare wheel. With all Quartermasters, there's just one transmission choice. That's a ZF 8-speed automatic and one size of load bay. There's only one body shape to this double cab, although it is worth mentioning that if you don't actually need a pickup back and you can cope with just 2 front seats, then all the same engineering here can be had for quite a lot less with the Grenadier Commercial. That's a kind of off-road van. Unlike with this Quartermaster, you can claim back the VAT on one of those, hence the much lower looking asking price, which was £51,930 ex-VAT as we filmed. But our focus here is on the Quartermaster pickup. So far we've mentioned the base version, but almost nobody buys that. Instead, most customers will be looking at one of the 2 edition variants, either the Trialmaster or, as in this case, the Fieldmaster, which are both named after Belstaff jackets. That's the hardware and clothing brand, which is part of the INEOS portfolio. They were both priced from £69,995 at the time of this review. As well as their specific equipment features, these add a rear view camera, front parking sensors, powered heated mirrors, heated windscreen washer jets, a compass with an altimeter, auxiliary charge points and a load bay tub liner to the standard kit tally. The more off-road orientated option is the Trialmaster model. This features a rough pack with front and rear differentials and BF Goodrich mud plug-in tyres, plus a 400 watt power takeoff, a raised air intake, interior utility rails, and what the brand calls a utility belt running around the middle of the body for attaching things like shovels and jerry cans. The alternative is this Fieldmaster version, which is supposed to be more lifestyle orientated, so it gets leather upholstery, heated front seats and smarter looking 18-inch alloy wheels to replace the usual 17-inch steel rims. Also a premium sound system and what the company calls safari windows, which are pop-up sunroofs above the front seat occupants. At the very top of the range though is a very rare kind of Quartermaster indeed, the top Trialmaster X variant. This is a factory supported conversion by German off-road experts and INEOS distributors Latec. You have to spend over £150,000 on one of those. Yes, really, but in return you really do get the ultimate possible pickup with enormous 37-inch tyres that sit on 18-inch wheels and extended arches, courtesy of an added portal axle system. Each of the wheel hubs has its own little gearbox, which lowers gear ratio, raises under axle clearance and widens track width. The Trialmaster X features the same petrol or diesel engine choice as the normal model. but it gets uprated shock absorbers and springs, uprated brakes too, and a 4.5-ton front winch. In case you're wondering, there's really nothing else in the pickup segment quite like a Quartermaster, even from Land Rover, who at the time of filming had paid INEOS the compliment of reviving their old classic Defender model for sale, although this had only been made available in two-door 90 form. The closest similarly targeted rival in global terms is the Jeep Gladiator. That's not sold here though. In terms of other pickups you can have in the UK, the only other one with coil rather than crude leaf-sprung rear suspension like a Quartermaster is the Ford Ranger Raptor, but that blue oval brand model has the setup for fast dirt track use instead of gnarly mud plugging purposes. For reference, as we filmed, a Raptor only costs around £3,500 less than a base Quartermaster. For something leaf-sprung and properly off-road comparable to this INEOS, like say an Isuzu D-Max AT35 Arctic trucks, you'll be looking at around £57,000 as we filmed, so around £5,000 less than a base Quartermaster. If, having considered all that, you conclude it is a Quartermaster that you really want, then you'll need to know some more specifics on spec. Now, earlier we gave you the main features fitted to the base spec model, as well as the items already mentioned, and all this INEOS model's fundamental off-roading features. These also include Bridgestone all-terrain tyres, a full-size spare wheel, roof rails, an anti-theft alarm and immobiliser, and inside Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. Plus there are the usual core safety features: automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, intelligent speed assist and driver drowsiness protection. Bear in mind with any Quartermaster that unless you choose the only standard colour, which is Britannia Blue, you'll be paying INEOS extra for your paintwork. We have Magic Mushroom finish here. With the 2 edition variants, most customers add a few extra luxury items to the Trialmaster and a few off-roading items to the Fieldmaster version. You can mix and match as much as you want to. Specifically for this Fieldmaster model and the base variant too, nearly all customers pay more for the key features which have been added to this test model here: a raised air intake, a fixed tow ball, and the Trialmaster Rough Pack, which, as we previously mentioned, gives you front and rear differential locks, and these gnarlier BF Goodrich off-road tyres. Further commonly added extra features fitted to this particular model we have here today include the brand's popular exterior utility belt, plus a contrast ladder frame and a spare wheel lockable storage box. But you'll probably want carpet mats too. The cargo bay can be fitted with a robust frame and a waterproof canvas canopy, a lockable roller tonneau cover or crossbars, while a roof rack will further increase your carrying capacity. Right, how practical can this Quartermaster be? Well, not very practical at all if you have heavy loads to carry. The best that you're going to get is 835 kilos for this petrol variant with the lightest options. The heavier diesel derivative in base form can carry just 760 kilos. And that's a real problem because it means that no version of this Quartermaster can offer the necessary 1,000 kilo payload to be eligible for VAT reclamation, which makes this vehicle seem even more expensive. The rear tailgate is 1280 millimeters wide and it can take 225 kilos of weight when it's open. In the load area, there's room for a standard Euro pallet of the 1200 by 800 millimeter sort. That's only if you remove the spare wheel, which, if you have the right accessories, you can then relocate either onto the roof or onto a special rack which sits above the load bay area. The load bed is 1564 millimeters long, 1690 mils wide and 485 millimeters high at its maximum, and it has 4 tie-down rings. At least towing capacity is up to class standards. All versions of this model can tow up to 3,500 kilos. Now, you won't be expecting a Quartermaster to be particularly affordable to run, even in diesel form, and it isn't. The diesel is rated at up to 24.4 miles per gallon on the combined cycle, about 3 mpg behind the equivalent Grenadier. You'll probably be averaging more like 20 mpg in real life. This petrol model is predictably quite a lot thirstier, returning up to 19.6 miles per gallon, although it should still give you a drive range of over 350 miles thanks to the huge 90-litre fuel tank. The CO2 returns of both powertrains are sobering, up to 306 grams per kilometre for the diesel and up to 325 grams per kilometre for this petrol. The BMW engine and transmission packages are well proven and should be reliable. The Quartermaster's ladder frame chassis, that gets a full e-coat treatment, which includes cathodic dip coating and an electrochemical coating process too, plus internal cavity wax application and an exterior powder coat. As a result, INEOS is confident enough to give it a class-leading 12-year anti-perforation warranty. This is far more our idea of the ultimate pickup, as it should be given the prices INEOS wants to charge. There's simply nothing else out there that's as rugged or would dare to go the places that a Quartermaster would take you in its stride. It won't be for everyone, of course. In fact, the quirky looks, the high running costs and the exalted pricing means that it'll hardly be for anyone. And the payload capacities, they are really disappointing. But if none of that seems important, if you fit the Quartermaster customer demographic and you like the idea of one of these, then nothing else is going to satisfy you in quite the same way. If you're seeking the ultimate rugged addition to your dream garage, we can't help thinking that this pickup model is more appealing than its Grenadier SUV stablemate. Charismatic and idiosyncratic, there's nothing quite like it.